Hello, dear nurturing parents. Welcome to the Nurturing Parent Podcast. And to start off this episode, I just want to give a quick shout out to Bree, who left our most recent review. So I want to say thank you so much, Bree. You don't know how much your words mean to us, Amma and I, and to the algorithm of just helping our podcast pop up for other families to find us. So thank you so much, and here is Bree's sweet review. She titles it So Helpful and Encouraging. First time mama, I've learned so many things from this podcast. Simple suggestions for parenting the way I aspire to. Thank you for creating this podcast for us mamas out there who need support. And that just means the world to us. That quick review, you taking your time to just write those words means that we really are making an impact in your families. And that's our goal. So it is so rewarding to hear that from you mamas and dads out there. All right. Now, for this week's episode, we love to end our months with a listener Q&A because we do have many parents that reach out with questions, and most of those questions pertain to a lot of situations that we encounter as parents. So for this week's Q&A, we had an amazing listener send us an amazing question about how to respond to another kid hitting our kids. So Amma will share the question and then dive into the ways that we can approach this. And it's really helped with not even hitting, but just like my daughter right now, she'll run to me and say, Ashley said I'm not her best friend. So this episode has really empowered me and taught me how I can respond to her, help her, give her her own voice, help her stand up for herself, and really just respond to any situation, even between siblings. So we hope that you enjoy this, and let's get into it.
Hey, Mama. Welcome to the Nurturing Parent Podcast. Do you want to end the constant battles for bath time? Do you find yourself emotionally exhausted at the end of the day? Do you wake up with big hopes for a smooth day of fun with your little ones, only to face an early morning meltdown because you peeled their banana the wrong way?
Silly you.
Silly you.
Hey, I'm Serena. I'm a mama of two little ones, and as a new mama, I constantly question myself. I wanted to make sure I was raising respectful kids while also building a strong bond with them. But I discovered that I had to unlearn my ideas that punishment was the way. With Lisa's encouragement, I've been practicing a respectful and gentle parenting approach, which is strengthening our bond as a family.
And hi, I'm Lisa. Amma means grandmother in Icelandic. I am a mama and an Amma. And I have over 40 years of experience in childcare and parent coaching. And I am so excited to share the knowledge I've gained over these years with you.
Together in this podcast, each week we will explore some easy to implement skills you can add to your parenting tool belt to help you create a happy, thriving family.
We love hearing from you. And when we hear from a new listener who comes to us with a question, we love to do a Q&A for all of you. So this goes out with a huge thank you to Jeannie from Wyoming for writing to us with this question. And so I'm going to read what she wrote to us, and that's her cue. And then I will give you Amma's A. I'm sure Mama Serena will have some input as well. Hi, I love your podcast. Thank you for all the helpful insights. You're welcome. And thank you so much for saying so. I just listened to the episode about kids biting. And I was wondering what you would recommend doing when other people's kids bite or hurt my child. What's a good way to handle that without overstepping the other parent or parents? I just have one little darling boy who is 17 months old. I haven't actually had many issues with him hurting or being hurt by other kids, but I'm trying to think ahead of how I will handle those situations when they do arise, since he will be spending more time with cousins and in general for when he's with other kids. His cousins are great. I just know that it's normal for little kids to not always treat each other nicely. I want to avoid any potential drama with family members or friends caused by me not handling a situation well if one of their kids hurts mine. Thanks so much in advance, Gigi. All right. Isn't that great?
Yeah, that's great. And I love how she's being proactive about it and getting that help before it happens.
Yes. That was my first paragraph to her in my initial response. Thank you for such a great question and for thinking ahead and being proactive. I mean, that's really awesome. Now, I will do my best to give you some hopefully helpful tips, Jeannie, and all of you listeners, because as you said, Jeannie, this does come up with young children, and it's not so much about them not treating each other nicely as they just don't have the development yet that supports appropriate ways of dealing with situations when they don't have the language, right?
Yeah, and I would even say maybe they just weren't even taught or have that same example that your child might have. And that's something I've had to learn when I'm dealing with other kids and when they interact with my daughters, because they just have different examples that teach them how to respond and react in certain situations. And that's allowed me to, when I see something happening that I don't like, I don't look at that kid now as a bad kid. I'll defer that to their parents maybe. But it helps me take the blame off of that kid and not react.
Yes, totally. And not all parents who have children who are acting out aggressively are quote unquote bad parents.
Yes.
Sometimes the child
that is correct.
is just going through a stage.
Yeah.
But I love the piece in there that you shared, Serena, is that it helps you not feel angry or judgmental even towards that other child. So this could be a relative, a friend, or even possibly a stranger in a park or a public play area, right? And just to comment on, you, Jeannie, wanting to avoid drama. We can do our best to try to avoid drama and with family members or friends. And sometimes people react in ways that we can't anticipate. And I just want to say that being a parent comes with its share of drama of one kind or another. So it's just part of the territory. Okay. So let's create a hypothetical situation for you because you don't have a specific one, but it's a great hypothetical question. Your toddler is playing with another toddler. The other toddler lashes out and gives your child a shove, a smack, or even a bite. What's your first job? Your very first job, mama or dad. As much as you are able, stay calm. That's your first job. Even if your child got knocked down and is crying, even if your child got hit really hard with something, stay calm. Remember, you need to keep your equilibrium. You need to keep yourself, the adult here, regulated, your emotions regulated. It might be tricky, but maybe it'll help to remember that children need our adult regulation skills, our ability to self-regulate, for them to regulate off us. Their hearts calm down. Their breathing calms down when our heart rate is calm, when our breathing is calm. Okay. That's your first step. Always, as best you can, stay calm. If it's your first child that's been intentionally hurt by another, it's not going to be easy. It's never easy to hear our young ones cry out, whether it's from shock or from actual pain. But, pull up those self-regulation skills and bring that to the game. Now, with that calmness, your number one rule of thumb. Immediately give attention to the child that was hurt, not to the aggressor. Our immediate knee-jerk reaction is going to say, don't you push my child over. Don't you hurt my child. Don't do that. That's our immediate gut reaction, our knee-jerk reaction. No, our
Yeah,
initial reaction. Go ahead.
even especially if it's something in between the siblings, especially
Mhm.
we'll go and attack the other one's character. But that was something huge, and that is my first thing when something happens with my kid, is just giving that attention to my kid and not bringing any negative energy or steering that towards the kid that harmed my kid.
Yeah. So, number one, exactly. Give the attention to the one who has been hurt or their feelings have been hurt, even. And why do we do that? Because giving attention is, in a weird way, a form of quote unquote reward. Some children will do things to get attention that is challenging behavior. And it's often because they're not getting their need, their primal human need for attention met in positive ways. So they're bringing negative attention in. And so we don't want to give them the reward of giving them our attention, even if it's negative attention, even if it's getting mad at them. That's all attention. So give your attention immediately to the hurt child. Remove the child out of harm's way. Okay, like we're going to protect our child here. And then you want to acknowledge the child's hurt feelings. And if you're a few paces away, if you're at a playground and you're sitting on the bench and they're way over there by the swing set or whatever, you can start acknowledging the feelings while you're hurrying towards them. So you want to remove the child from harm's way and acknowledge their feelings, whichever comes first. They all go together. It can be scary to get pushed down by someone you were playing with. It can hurt your feelings. Or, ouch, it looks like that really hurt. It might have been a bit of a shock, too. And then you can also give that toddler some words, whether or not they are verbal. Give them the words. Like I've said before, in the under threes daycare, 1.5-year-olds to 2.5-year-olds, we had 14 of them in the room. I constantly gave them the words, whether they had the vocabulary or not. So you can say to your child, you could say to your cousin, I don't like being pushed. If you don't want me to play with that toy, tell me with your word, because pushing hurts. And give them the words, give them the feeling that you are seeing that they're experiencing, right?
Yeah. Giving them the words is a nice thing to replace that it's okay, you're fine, don't worry.
100%. When we say it's okay, you're fine, that didn't hurt, you just got pushed over, you're fine,
Stop
that's
crying.
that's called invalidation. You are invalidating another human being's feelings, and you do not have the right. We all have the right to feel what we feel. Okay. That's a really great point. Thank you for bringing that in. And then the next move is really just to comfort your child, whether you're holding them in your lap or holding them in your arms or you're holding hands, depending how big they are, and walking a ways away from the situation. If you have a child that doesn't like physical touch when they're upset, okay, that's totally fine. You know the ways that you can connect with your child in those moments when they need a little more from you. And if you don't know that yet, if your child is young and you're beginning to see that they don't like that response with physical comfort, you will learn. You just have to be open to learning. My daughter didn't like a lot of hugging and holding and touching and stuff like that some of the time. And I had a humming song that I made for her right after she was born. I made up humming songs for my grandchildren. It's just something I do. And when she would be really upset about something, even, I'm going to tell you, even into her teen years, there was a few things that were really upsetting. And we would have our moments about talking about it or whatever. And I would start, we would, after we'd stop talking, or if she didn't feel like talking, I would just start humming her song, her hum. And it was just that familiar thing that I always brought in. And you could just make something up. I love you to the moon and back. I love you all the way. I love you to the moon and back. I love you all the way. You make something up that you give them every time they need comfort. So that's a little aside. I'm a tangents again.
And some Amma songs.
And a little Amma's a singing Amma. I mean, it's just part of the package, you guys.
Yeah.
um, remember that even when children are too young to be able to say all of that for themselves, you are doing two things here by giving them the words. You're offering them some appropriate responses. So they're putting that in their learning banks. And you are acknowledging that some behaviors are not acceptable. You're also reassuring your child that you've got their back while they are mastering social interactions, right? Then, after you've done all of that, you can turn your attention to the aggressor. Keep in mind that toddlers often resort to physical means of getting their point across, getting their needs met, because they lack the language skills to sort out the problem with words. Even if you think this particular child may have hurt your child on purpose, some children do act out, and it seems like that's just part of who they are at this stage in their life with aggression. It is still important to keep the shaming and blaming out of the conversation. Piling shame and blame on top of whatever that little child is already carrying around that has them acting out in a way that, in an aggressive way, is not going to heal the problem. If you're shaming and blaming those children who do seem to be aggressive on purpose, you're actually probably going to reinforce that kind of behavior. Our job as the adult is to be the adult.
And that means not saying, "Oh, he hit you, hit him back," because
oh my gosh, please no.
That would have been me before the nurturing parent, and that's how I went through high school. If someone hits you, you hit them back. That to me seems like common sense. If someone hits you, you hit them back. Defend yourself.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much because we come from two different worlds, and it's so good for both of us. And it's so good, I hope, for you, listener, because you're probably somewhere in between or on one of these ends of the equation here that Serena and I hang out on. That's really cool. Yeah. And that lines up beautifully with my next note, which says, remember, firm boundaries are best created with kindness. You can try saying to that other child, and here I want you to hear in what I'm going to offer you as the words you could suggest. There's no blame, there's no shame. You're stating some boundaries as kind of factual situations. Hitting is not okay. If you are frustrated or angry about something, I expect you to use your words. You can say, I don't like it when you grab that toy. I wanted to play with it. I want to go first. And if you don't have the words for what you want to say, come get me. Get my attention. I'm here. I'm happy to help if I can. Just, we don't use our hands for hitting. Hitting is not okay. So in all of that, you can hear, I didn't attack the child. I didn't blame the child. I described what I need from the child who has just hurt my child, whether it's hitting or pushing or whatever it was, right?
Right. And this just reminds me of kind of what my daughter's going through now. She's 3.5. Um, and they're at this point where they just run to us for everything. Oh, she took this away from me. And instead of us jumping in and going to resolve the situation, I'll just give her the words and send her back and let her do the speaking for herself so she can learn to stand up for herself, not
Mm-hmm.
stepping in each time.
And are you seeing that shift? Because that was a while ago that we first talked about that.
Well, right now she just started this running to me for
Okay.
everything. And
Okay. Yeah.
so you can say this, you can tell her how you feel.
Yeah.
And so yeah, she is starting to hear it. She is, when she's getting into a situation, saying how she feels and asking, "Can I please have that?"
Yeah.
Or, standing up for herself.
Mm-hmm. It's so good. And if um so let's go back to this child who has been hit or pushed over or whatever happened. I mixed it up a bit in there. Um if that child, if you now are saying to that child, hitting is not okay, if your child is an older toddler like yours, 3.5, you can say to your child, do you want to say, do you want to tell that child that hitting is not okay, or would you like me to tell them for you? And your child might say, I'm going to tell them. So they go back and they say, hitting is not okay. If you want to play with the toy first, then tell me that. For a 3.5, 4 year old, that's a totally fine conversation for them to have between themselves. And you're nearby, you're there. And if the other child goes like they're going to push them again or hit them again, you pull your child further away, or you just move your body in closer and say, people are not for hitting. Give them the basic information. It's not okay to hit, right? Anything else there? Because then I want to move into how do we deal with the other child's parent?
Being able to say that hitting is not okay. And you can say it nonchalantly and
Mm-hmm.
not give all that attention, because
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it can be rewarding. That could be what they're looking for, is that attention. I think
Yeah,
that's big.
that's good. And keeping it short and sweet, and not having a tone in your voice that sounds like you are admonishing that child.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was saying that hitting is not okay, if you are frustrated or angry about something, I expect you to use your words. Now that tone of voice would be if it was a really big hurt, if it was a big push, if your child actually got quite hurt or something like that, right? And if it was a little bit less of a misdemeanor, you could change your tone of voice to match it. Hitting is not okay. If you're frustrated or angry about something, let's use words. Words work. You know what I mean? Can you hear the difference in the tone?
Yeah.
So match your tone to the situation and keep it short. Don't go on and on and on and on and on and on about it, because that just becomes lecturing and that's not helpful. Okay. So just before we close off, how are we going to deal with the other child's parent? How you deal with this will partly depend on whether it is someone you know and who is in your life, or a stranger in a park or a public play area. In the case of a stranger in a public setting, I would say the best advice would be to initially say to your child, possibly within hearing of the other child, hitting is not okay. I know it hurt. It hurt your body and it probably hurt your feelings too. I'm here if you need me. So you say that to your child, maybe within hearing of the other child in the playground. You want to stay closer to their child where they are playing. If this is happening in the public arena, or if it's happening, at grandma's house with the cousins, whatever the situation, you keep your presence in their space closer. A calm adult can help children regulate themselves like just by being there. When I would see what I thought was an eruption happening on the far side of that big daycare room that I worked in, I would just scoop myself over there and squat down, not right in the middle of them, but nearby, near enough they knew my presence was there. And I don't know if it was just the calming presence of a calm adult, but it just seemed to diffuse things before they blew up. So then you're there and you can hopefully it'll diffuse the situation, or if the child is still aggressive, you can move your child away more quickly, or reach out and stop that hand from pushing or hitting your child, or whatever that might be. If the other child continues to be aggressive, just take yourself and your child away. Just move away. It may be annoying to have to leave that playground sooner than you'd planned, but your number one goal always is to protect your child from harm. So that would be, you're not going to get into it with a stranger parent on the playground. I mean, I don't recommend trying to change somebody's parenting. Sometimes it'll happen. Your child will get quite intentionally shoved by another child, fall down, and the other parent is just completely oblivious, right? You don't it's not your job to try and change the world of parenting. It's not even my job. And I've been doing this for 40 years and I have to bite my tongue sometimes when I see things like that. If the other parent is a relative or a friend, like you mentioned, Jeannie, you will need to find a way to work on this together, if at all possible. And most often it will be possible. You could say something like, I'd like us to both be a bit closer to the kids while they're playing so we can notice the aggression before it's acted out. Then one of us can step in and maybe we just say, oops, what is it you need right now? Or, just intervene somehow. And then assuming it is due to a lack of necessary brain development, and just being a support system for that child and those children. Remember, they're learning how to be social humans and they're very, very new at it. Let's face it. Some of us, when we're 30, 40, 50, 60, 20, 80, we don't always act appropriately socially, right? So let's not expect more of our little tiny humans than we do of people much, much older. Occasionally, you might come up against other parents who don't seem to think the aggression between the children is a problem. People still, very surprisingly to me, will say things like, boys will be boys, or that's just kids for ya, or something like that, and kind of brush it off. And if you're not okay with what just went down, and I mean, your child will get shoved, they will get pushed, they will get hit by other toddlers, and it's just going to happen at different times. And so don't make a huge deal of it, but if it's a really aggressive act, then definitely put some of this in place. Number one, of course, always is advocating for your child's safety. And to that other parent, you might say, I get that it's not really a big deal for you, and it feels like a bigger deal to me. I'm not comfortable with the behaviors that I'm witnessing. My kid's getting hurt, and that feels awkward and not nice. We could agree to differ that this is just normal child behavior, which it is, but I want us to intervene. And if you're not comfortable with that, then I guess I'm going to suggest that we just don't have play dates for a while. I mean, that, just until this phase passes. No offense or anything, but I just need to keep myself and my child's self safe. Or if that's an uncomfortable thing to say, depending on your relationship with this person, you can just decide this on your own and just not have the play dates for a while, right?
Right. I would probably just not do the play dates for a while.
I know. And if they say, you always seem to be busy, how come you're not available? You can then choose if you want to say, well, actually, to be honest, it was really hard for me because your child kept, really my kid was crying every time they got together, and that just didn't feel good. And so I'm just getting some space from that,
Mm-hmm.
right? If it's at a family gathering, so there you are at grandma's house, and these are cousins, and you can't opt to not see them or not have those play dates. Here's the things: pre-pave with your child. If there has been aggression that happened with a cousin or whomever, talk a little bit about it before you go to this gathering, and make a game plan together. Create possibly a private code word or gesture between the two of you. Remember not to use the word secret code, because secrets are what potential predators like to use, that word. So we're going to have a private code between you and me. And if you feel like you're getting nervous that your cousin is going to shove you down and jump on you again, you can touch your nose and look at me and touch your nose. Mama, 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 and touch your nose. Whatever your code is that you guys decide on. And then I'll know that I need to come closer to you. So that's one thing, is to create a code to pre-pave with your child how to be, what sorts of things the child could say to the other child. And to reassure your child that you will stay close, especially at the very beginning of when they start playing and hanging out, just to see how it feels today. If it feels like a little edgy, like, oh, I don't trust it not to happen, then you can stay close for longer. And the child can decide not to play with those cousins right now. But then it's tricky because they want to play, but they just don't want to get hurt. So your proximity to them might be a key. And also letting your child know that you'll be there for them, and they can easily come and find you if you're not right beside them. And they can climb on your lap, hold your hand, sit beside you, or whatever it is they need in that moment. Anything else you can think of there for?
No, I think that was all really great information, and it's not even just with hitting or anything. It's if they're having problems sharing or
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
insulting each other, or something that they go through is, you're not my best friend.
Mm,
Oh, and then they run to you, oh, they said I'm not their best friend. And so just those are great tools to just
mm.
know how to respond to any problems when kids are interacting with each other.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. We love you, and have a beautiful rest of your day. I want to say, if you feel so inclined, we would love you to write a review for us on Apple Podcasts. If you don't have an iPhone, borrow one. Somebody did that for us. She borrowed her husband's iPhone. Thank you, listener. I forget your name. I'm sorry in this moment. But yeah, it makes a huge difference for other people finding us. That would be doing us a big service, and we appreciate it so much. And in fact, I think we're going to start reading out some of our reviews again, aren't we, Serena? Yeah. Okay. So thank you for that. And we love you.
Okay, now let's jump into my gems. And for this episode, one of my gems was going to be the steps of exactly how to respond to this situation, but Amma went through it so smoothly and clearly that I don't think I need to re-say all of those things. So the three things that really stood out to me in this episode is, number one, to stay calm when your child gets hit or shoved or whatever the situation may be, but don't react and don't oh my gosh, or yell, because that will also heighten them and that won't help the situation. Number two is giving them the words and feelings that you are seeing. And this is such a huge lesson to help them learn how to cope, how to express themselves. And most importantly, as Amma mentioned, is show that you have their back. That's a big thing that doesn't really get noticed is that we really have to show our kids that we have their back and we are on the same team as they are. I think that's a huge part of creating that connection and keeping it. And then number 3 is keep the shame and blame out. So this adds to their load, it doesn't help, and it might reinforce their behavior. And sometimes it's easy for us to say, oh my gosh, they're such a bad kid, or bad girl, don't hit. Those are just reactions that come out of us, which might be hard to change. But if you know that it's not helping the situation and it's probably going to make the situation worse, why are we going to react that way? That's why we like to say, once you know better, you can do better. And so make sure that your attention goes to the child that is hurt. Try not to give the other one attention because it can be rewarding for them. And do not shame and blame. I'll do it sometimes as a reaction, but then I feel really guilty and feel really bad because they're kids. They don't know better. And by doing this, we can be reinforcing that. And that's not what I want. I want my kid to get along with other kids, and I want other kids to get along with my kid. So I found this episode extremely helpful. I'm so grateful for this question, and we love to welcome any questions that you might have so we can feature them in our Q&As. And we love you, and we are so grateful for you. So if you found this episode just as helpful, make sure that you leave us a review on Apple. Thank you so much, parents. We'll see you next week.
I want to sing with you. I want to dance with you. I want to laugh with you. Oh, how I love to be with you. I do. I do. Such a short time we've been together.